Participate in a conversation with once conservative, now liberal Midwest mastered prepared special education high school teacher and a self-proclaimed devil's advocate, East Coast conservative liberal, baccalaureate prepared registered nurse. These two strangers met, became instant friends, and realized their conversations are candid and epic. So join us weekly, ask us questions, and listen to these profoundly candid friends try to solve the world's problems, one discussion at a time.
All right, guys, welcome to our very first episode of The New Theory, aka TNT with MJ. I am Jared.
I'm Monet.
And together we are teaching minds
and nurturing souls.
And for those that don't know, the way we're going to do this is our very first episode, so we don't have any special guests yet. But the way we got it formatted right now is we're going to just ask each other our questions. For those that don't, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, I'm saying real, like, questions, not like, oh, are you happy? No, none of that.
We don't beat around the bush. We cut straight to it. For our listening audience, I know that we put out our promo last week, and so you got a whole lot of comparisons and paradigms and dynamics and within all those descriptions. But I'm gonna throw a couple more out there. Obviously, you can tell that I'm a dude, she's a gal, but I'm also white. I'm
black.
Male. So there you go. So we're covering all kinds of gamuts here. So for those that are listening, that's just another dynamic that just makes this our combination just even more interesting and profound.
No, I'm saying I love that you're a Southern white man from Arkansas, the Midwest, and I'm an East Coast, and I have to add Christian, and I'm an East Coast Black female who happens to be Jewish, conservative. I'm a conservative, so I'm not Orthodox and I'm not Reform.
Wow.
So we're taking those perspectives and adding this in to our dynamic as well.
Exactly. And so how we're going to do this for our first episode, guys, is we've given each other 3 questions, and we're just going to take turns asking each other these questions. And so I think by luck of the draw, so to speak, Miss Monet has gotten prerogative. So she's chosen to do what now? I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask the first question and just see what your answers are to these.
Okay.
So how do you start the conversation with your white friends about white privilege?
It really just depends on who I'm talking to. If it's a complete stranger, I'm listening and waiting for opportunity to ask or to engage in the conversation. And if it's a family member or a friend, if anything, I try to I see what they say, whatever the topic. I mean, if they're talking about this whole racial thing and talking about it, and they may say something misleading or misinformed or not have the full story there, I want to interject something, and that usually starts the conversation. Had that recently happen a week or so ago. Got into a Facebook conversation with a childhood friend of mine. Haven't talked to him in 20 plus years, since I was in 9th grade, by the way. Interjected something on one of his posts, and then it gets carried over into private message. Facebook Messenger, and then that turns into a phone call. Wow. And we end up talking for 2 hours. So that's how I usually start those conversations. I'm usually, if it's complete strangers, I'm listening and waiting for opportunity. And then be it social media or friends or whatever, I'm probably just going to interject something to get them curious or get them asking a question or get them wondering, and then maybe that spurs the conversation. And so far, usually it does.
All right. So with that question, I want to ask you just a little tangent.
Sure.
If is it like, do you have to use examples of what white privilege is?
Yeah, actually, the most recent one I shared with a family member, and talking about some our history with our run-in with small town racist. I'm sorry, it is a racist. It was anyway a racist town. I mean, you can't be an all-white town and not be a racist town. So, but
not all, Jared. We gotta be
not
fair.
not all. You're right. Not all. I know that not everybody in there. But our run-ins with the police at that time, and what that looked like for us, and what that could have been, had our skin been a different color. Exactly.
I feel, and just to piggyback on me asking you that question, I feel for some white people, because when you're in your own bubble, do you know what I'm saying? When you're in your own bubble, you don't realize, because you're living everyday life, that just the convenience of being able to walk down the store, it's like, it can't be that kind of a problem. We don't experience it, so it's not a big deal. And when I think when America is starting to expose its truths to each other, I think white people then realize it's. But what like saddens me is that, like, you get it, and you're there. You're in the Midwest. You're down south. You get it. But it's so many people out there that are like, and I'm like, where is the can opener? I mean, how can we dig into their head? But I think what you're saying is like brilliant. So
well, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna follow that up with saying that it's really it's very difficult for my white friends to say, well, we need to fix the problem. We need to fix the problem. There is a risk. Well, okay, great. What about your white privilege? Oh, that doesn't exist. Well, wait a minute. You can't fix the problem. Exactly. That's my point. You've got to acknowledge the problem before you can begin to talk about fixing it. So, yeah.
So I guess we got to have classes to recognize, like, I think it's just the constant beating of the constant, like, see, this is what I experienced. Have you ever experienced, I mean, and it's always going to be an argument, like, yeah, I've experienced people being mean to me. And it's like, okay, maybe we can then start using examples like, are you from this section of this territory, and that, and one section is perceived better than the other. That's literally what it is. And that it, regardless of whatever side of the tracks you are, if you're a good person, you're a good person. So we then have to identify the bad people.
Exactly.
But go ahead. All right. So is it my question now?
Yeah, it is your question. So here's your first question. When I first met you, you were I remember our first conversation and a lot of it. And at that time, I'm trying to remember, there was there were Black Lives Matter protests going on at the time. This was a couple of years ago. So I'm trying to remember, and I hate to be cavalier.
They weren't even as big as they are now.
Oh, I know, but they were doing. But there was protest in response to another killing. Was my point.
Yeah.
And just another sense. I can't even say. I don't even want to call it senseless killing, because that implies that sometimes killing can be senseful. Anyway, but that's a whole other ballgame. But when I first met you, there was Black Lives Matter protests going on, and you were all about the all lives matter. Talking about, man, I wish my Black brothers and sisters would just wake up. It is all lives matter. Yeah, and all this other things. But that's not the case anymore. So my question is, ultimately, why? What precipitated that change in your thinking?
Okay.
And your beliefs?
No, just for background education, I was raised in a very multicultural, obviously, life. So for me, inherently, it was always all lives matter, because I got to live amongst people of different nationalities in this country, in America. I mean, not just like break bread with them, but like live with them and celebrate holidays, their holidays with them, and not just Jewish people. I'm talking Korean, Iranian, and the list goes on. I mean, my father was an import-export broker. He traveled the world. He interacted with people. So for me, it was always global understanding. And I find that one thing, and we can all agree, in order for people, a lot of ways people unite is over food. And it's funny because if there's a celebration internationally, it's like everybody parties the same. All right. So for me, I was like, no, I think it's going to create division. I think it's going to, go against, the principles of unity. Well,
Mm-hmm.
in recent events, and it did, like initially in 2013, it was like divisive. People were like, no, yes, no. And then they showed videos. People were saying Black Lives Matter. And then people that said all lives matter were being attacked. It was just like, it kind of like, gave audience to, I mean, it made it seem like, yeah, it's not working because look what it's doing. It's making people violent. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now it's changed. And I find that when you say Black Lives Matter, whether you're affiliated with the organization or not, or you're just saying it on your Facebook post, not even donating or whatever, people are like, okay, I agree. And to hear and see the dialogue that white people are using, that Black people have always used. And now there's a tangent to it. It's like, okay, Black Lives Matter when all lives matter. Do you know what I'm saying? All lives matter. When Black Lives matter, all lives will matter. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. I'm like, yes. So I feel like, and I put it on one of my Facebook posts, it's a conduit to conversation. And it's actually enacting more education, more conversations than ever before. It was like the whole, you can't talk about sex, religion, politics, that whole genre, that whole generation of keeping us suppressed by saying you can't do that. It's like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about, because there were kids, obviously I went to high school, because I'm 45. I went to high school with kids that were homosexual, whether, or non-binary, however they wanted to, but we didn't talk about it. So therefore they didn't exist. Well, now this generation is talking about it and therefore it exists. And I feel like we as a nation need to step up. And so, yes, by saying Black Lives Matter now, it's like I feel like I'm having more heartfelt conversations. I'm able to tell people, don't be sorry. Just, it's like, that's back there. Let's change the steps that we're taking now. Let's make better decisions and let's have these open dialogues so that we can get over it. Okay, not even, and I hate saying that because that was a term that used to be used to suppress. Let's enlighten ourselves so that, one, we don't make the same mistakes and we do look at each other as equals and not inferiors or superiors.
Right. Yeah, see the humanity.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, that was yeah, I think you answered that pretty well.
Shut up.
I have nothing to follow up on that, unless you just want to share more, because I truly enjoy listening to stories and listening to what
life.
Yeah, listen to life. What formed your opinions? What formed your beliefs? Why are you now where you're at now than what you were 2 years ago when we met? That type of thing.
That's like the evolution of change. This is how it starts.
Exactly.
I always tell this story because in 2013, I was a school bus driver. And I was driving in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, for a company called McElwain's that looked at this young nursing student that lived in the projects and said, I'm giving her a chance. And they did. And they worked with me like I felt loved, in this town that can be perceived as racist. But there's always those golden slivers of love that, rain through. And I was driving for one side of the projects to this other side of the community. So the projects primarily was minority children, Black children. And the other side of the community, where it was almost like they lived on the side of a mountain, they were primarily white kids. And I fell in love with all the children. Everybody knew that, I spoiled these kids rotten, I did. Needless to say, when Black Lives Matter came out, the black kids got on the bus, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. I was like, okay, go sit down. And then the white kids got on, and the black kids would just get louder and like almost screaming like, hey, cut it out. And they respected me, so they stopped. But then when they got off, one of my kids, and I don't know her full name, but her name, she's 10 years old. She's Amanda. She's in 5th grade. And she came up to me and she was like, Miss Monet, do you really believe only Black Lives Matter? And for me to answer a child's question like that, like you can't, she's got to go to school. It made me think as an adult, like, is this a responsible enough tagline? I mean, are we educating these kids? Are they now growing up to believe that because they're not black or that they're inferior? I mean, these are questions that are being asked. So I was like, no, all lives matter. So that's really what got me on my soapbox and got me saying, and I'm like, and anybody that knows me, okay, this onion is deep. I mean, you know, to me calling myself black and my kids African American because I married an African for 20 years and created African American children, okay, for real. Like, don't come at me like you don't know, like, because I'm gonna help you out.
Yeah.
So I would go from that story in 2013 to, well, it's causing change, and we are now being more responsible with explaining why we're saying Black Lives Matter. And then we're bringing more information. And you know what? People are like, I don't like the protesters. You don't have to like, none of us like the destruction. Nobody likes to see their cities on fire, for real. We don't like it. It's kind of very cringy and almost warlike.
Yeah.
But what we will respect is the fact that these people are using their constitutional right to get out there and tell the world, it's time to wake up. We're missing a lot of things. And when it hits you, the enormity of how systematically oppressive our system is. I hate to say that because it sounds so redundant. There's a word in there I'm missing. Just a little bit. It's like, oh my God. So these people are running out to the corner, Black Lives Matter, because they know just that little sentence is going to make people, but it's also revealing those.
Oh yeah.
Be like, I don't agree with that. Really? Why?
Yeah. For those who are listening, the look on her face when she says that, it's hilarious. Just saying, it's oozing sarcasm. It's fantastic.
Oh my God. I love it.
All right. So I think
this is your question.
All right.
Ooh, okay. Have you experienced any kind of discrimination or bigotry? I can't remember how specifically you worded it when you asked me before.
But I can't remember. I think that was kind of how you worded it. You didn't have to, put the whole thing in there, but that's cool. Anyway, to answer your question, yeah, believe it or not, I have. And I didn't realize it at the time, because I was a kid and just didn't think anything of it. And ironically, the childhood friend that I mentioned earlier was the very one who asked me this, whether or not, I think I was, 11, 12 years old or something like that. Over the weekend, had him over, we were having a, get together that night, whatever. I just straight up asked me if I was gay, because at the time, the rumor around town that was circulating was that my mom was gay. Because on the surface, it looked like, well, best friends are now more active. They're living together now. They just both recently got divorced. What's going on here? So a lot of little chitter chatter going on and rumors rising. And so, because mom's gay and I'm into the fine arts and not into sports, because God forbid I live in a town that loves sports and I'm not wanting to play sports. So therefore I must be gay. But yeah, being the choir band student and whose brother is the athletic star and stuff like that, then yeah, by default, anyway, so yeah, I was straight up asked that, and then got teased quite a bit. School bully. Again, didn't think much of it. It just rolled off my back at the time. But up until these conversations, and then you actually asking me, I never really thought about it. It really didn't, for me, I guess it really didn't have a whole lot of bearing on who I am and who I was at the time. But yeah, I mean, bigotry is bigotry, no matter how you slice it. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I was at one point. I'm trying to think of any times after that in a very similar fashion, and I don't think so. Yeah, no, just when I was a little kid at the time, right around the time my parents got divorced. So yeah.
And you know the psychological reason for asking that, because the greatest way you can unite a community is to create semblances of similarity. Mm-hmm. And when someone has experienced a form of rejection, you know, denial of access, it's like, imagine that based on arbitrary things. I mean, like, your parents have nothing to do with you. That's arbitrary. Mm-hmm. It has there was no reason you should have been bullied for something that, like, nobody should be bullied. Let's correct that.
Yeah,
first of all. But, you know, we have a new ideology, because it's like survival of the fittest. And it's like, okay, here's the deal. We don't need to play those warrior games anymore because we're not primates. We've evolved. And the irony is, this generation, I call them the generation of compassion, because they all got trophies for participating, and it's showing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We laugh at them for that. But let me tell you something. Not only are they ingenious, but they're showing us everything you told us we couldn't do. Not only are we doing it, but we're doing it. Okay.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
right.
No, don't bully anybody. Don't use words that are going to be, you know, defaming and hurtful and criticize. Mm-hmm. And somebody, whoever the adult was around, should have been like, no, don't make fun of Jared for something he has no control over. Okay. It
was in the cafeteria, so right at the beginning of lunch. So, you know.
But still, there are adults.
No,
there
I get
too,
what you're saying.
Jared.
No, I get what you're saying.
There's
no,
somebody.
You're right.
It's our obligation as the adult to interject education in that, especially in these formative minds, because then you have a generation of people growing up with a form of false entitlement, okay? Because I'm entitled to criticize you because I feel is something wrong with you. No, you need to evaluate yourself and ask yourself why. Why is it necessary? I mean, we can argue a million subjects. I mean, abortion. People are like, oh, that's God. Oh, I love this argument. I love the argument of abortion. And do you know why? Because it's like, I can be pro-life my whole existence. I'm a woman. I am, whether it's religious based or not, I am pro-life. But for the world, it is their choice. Period. When I die by myself. Therefore, when I face God, he's going to question my decisions. I don't have the capacity or the means to judge anyone. That's actually blasphemy. That's against the code. And it only creates strife. So if you are in an organization where they like to create strife, you have to evaluate yourself.
Yeah.
Why? Bullying.
Exactly.
Most of these radical organizations, bullying, it starts somewhere. So when we interject with these children that's wrong, they'll grow up to be conscious, thoughtful adults, whether they have a college degree or not.
Yep.
And this is what our society is missing.
Yes, ma'am. And this is why we're doing what we're doing.
Yes, sir. Yes, we are.
All right. So your question. So I'm going to ask it, but know that it very well is loaded and it could go different things. So that being said, how do you respond to people of color that who make that argument in regards to police brutality? You know, I'll just leave it there. Their argument in regards to to justify all lives matter and to counter the police brutality reformation thing. The argument of the black on black or the white on white, black on white crime, white on black crime, black cops killing white people, and all these all those different scenarios, because I've heard them too. I've read those arguments. But how do you respond to people of color given that argument?
I love this. Sorry,
No, you're good.
Makes my toes curl, Jared.
I didn't need to know that.
Because it seems like a loaded question, and it seems like it's going to take some academia, okay? But the reality is, crime is crime, regardless if you're black or white. And police brutality, police victimize, it is the training, it's the mindset that they have that they're not trained adequately to handle. They are trained to always meet with force. And not use intellect. And I know for a fact a lot of police officers have to have at least associate's degrees. So they do make them go to school. They have to take sociology. They have to take psychology. In most cases, they have to take statistics so they can understand its statistical analysis. There must be an underwritten code that just because the way the system is designed, minorities are this, whether they're Hispanic, Black, Asian, okay, maybe, you get what I'm saying. So that is within the police system. I don't think they should be defunded. I think they should be re-educated. I think they should have more time in training. That, with dealing with that portion of the question, dealing with police brutality, that has its own, that system needs to be fixed. There's no question. Period. There needs to be more compassion on the side of police, understanding that a lot of these people who are not getting the psychological evaluations and assistance that they need to handle this, to identify when something is a drug-induced erratic behavior or a psychological, like a chemical-induced with regards to the brain chemistry. Okay, so they have schizophrenia or whatever, and the little 3-month training they get is not enough. They need a couple of years. Okay, to deal with that. And the lead officer who has had those years of training needs to take charge, okay, and understand that their job is to truly protect and serve, not to be the judge, jury, and the executor, okay? Now, with regards to the statistical analysis of white on white crime, black on black crime, you covet what you know. If I live in an all-black environment and there's crimes committed, it will be black on black crime. If I live in an all-white environment and there's crimes committed, it will be white on white crime. It has nothing to do with a racial bias with regard. It just is what it is. You're actually living in an environment where ultimately it will still be all white environments and there'll still be all black environments, just because people covet what they know and their economic ability to whether they move further, or even they can live in the city but live in a higher end area. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's economics is its own little beast right there. Whether you think that there's a problem with it or not, that's the conversation about capitalism that we'll have another time.
Absolutely.
And I don't hate capitalism. I just hate the abuse of it, gluttony and greed. But like I said, it's another day.
Yeah, that's another day, another time. Yes, ma'am.
But police, yes, yeah. But the whole question about it, so it's like know your neighbor. Case in point, had a discussion with my ex coworker, when I still consider her my sister. She happens to be from another country, and she was like, "There's some minority nurses that they're really not really doing a good job, but because they're minorities, I don't want to tell on them." I'm like, tell on them. Look.
Yeah, I mean,
if you're not doing the job, you're not doing the job. That doesn't mean I don't believe in what is it called? When I want to get to the point where we don't have to have, what is that law called when you have to have a certain amount of minorities involved?
Oh, affirmative action.
Affirmative action. I believe in affirmative action when you are not hiring the qualified candidates and they happen to be minorities. Okay. I believe in affirmative action when you service, like working in the hospital. Sorry, I have to hold mine and yours is stationary. I'm gonna fix that. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the camera.
Oh, good.
For those that don't know.
Yeah.
like, you know, I worked for a hospital where 70% of their staff were minorities. They took care of 75% of the patient load were minorities, and 100% of the management was white. Now, I argue that because it's like, how then do you give, because we have disparaging information about, you know,
No, you're good. Yeah, you're good.
The misuse and the mistreatment of minorities in the medical community. We already know that, with not giving sufficient pain medication based on social bias, not receiving adequate testing and treatment based on ignorance of patient complaints and not listening to them. So how then can you treat that population without having adequate minority representation in management? You need it. Maybe these people can communicate, advocate for these minorities that you're taking care of, so that you can see less visits to the ER, so you can see less visits, unnecessary visits to the doctor's office. If you have management that can advocate, like, oh no, y'all doing this wrong. If you do these testings and put these programs out, but therein lies the problem. And then you find an abundance. I mean, I was one of the nurses they fired because I refused to deal with the ignorance that was being displayed by management. So they found a way to get me out using like a closed door system. So when I was put on suspension, was I able to speak on my behalf or advocate for myself? Because there's no union there. Guess what? I was asked to leave, and my record was impeccable. I had no write-ups, no anything, and I was fired as an RN. So I know what an all-white management system looks like and what they do to minorities, because I'm a victim of it. And this is all involved. We started with a police brutality, and we got to this. But this is what happens when a race of people have all, you know, it's like, how can I say this? When you have all-encompassing power, you sit here and you justify with your cohorts, because what do they care? They have their job. They have, and if you by any chance step up and say, hey, you know, I don't think this is right. It was funny because when I went up to get my CPR information from them, mind you, I had already had a job, because just, you know, look at this. This is amazing. And God really does take care of me 1,000%. Absolutely. So it was never anything about money. And actually my pride wasn't tarnished at all, because why would I want to be associated with an organization that is this bigoted, obviously bigoted and narrow-minded, and really are not for taking care of the people. They're all about keeping their jobs, okay? And making it look good. So with that being said, when I went to get my CPR card, I had like 5 of it was 5 unit managers staring at me in disbelief, because I was like, hello, how are you? And they, like, I wasn't bitter, I wasn't angry. And I sat in the office and I was complimenting stuff because I was genuinely impressed with some of the decor. And then I could feel her internal like mechanism kind of melting, because it's like, now you really have to question yourself, don't you? Y'all terminated this for what? Because one person took their personal feelings too far and felt like I had assassinated their character, because I felt like they were not doing their job adequately. And it's not insubordination to tell you the truth and give you examples of your actions. Yeah. So it's amazing what happens. And I got a lot of stories of this. And when you work with me personally, and you know me personally, you're like, Monet, that can't, yes, honey, it happens. And it happens far more than you know. So it's a swagger we have to have. And if we want to hide, we'll just play the game that we were taught to play. We will not speak out. You will see like, oh, you're the happiest person in the world. I have to be happy, because if I deal with reality, I'll be depressed.
Yep.
So I'm not going to let that be my driving force. So it's like, oh, this is how the Blacks have made it. Yes. We shut our mouths. We smile. We even tap dance and play games and say, I have an objective to get, you know, I got an objective because I want to be a squirrel getting my nuts. Okay.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like inside, we're like, put this in our mental capacity and even on our proverbial and real file cabinets. This was another incident. And our file cabinets is about, 100 feet tall and 1,000 feet wide. Like, yeah, and they're like, it can't be that many unless we stay in an all-black environment.
Yeah.
And then we got our own problems, you know.
Yeah.
Because you asked me yesterday. You said Monet. Oh, wait. Is this part of the question?
You're good. I will say that for our listening audience, we're doing this via Zoom. We're recording this via Zoom, so we are under the confines of Zoom. So I think we've got maybe 18 more minutes.
Oh, sweet. So then I'll mention this real quick. I'll mention this because then I got a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Wait, hold on. What I was saying was, you asked me,
yes,
when I was a nurse in an all-black environment, I was met with a lot of, well, what is it like? Are you, because, you know, I'm almost representing the man, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, are you pushing the man's agenda? And for those that don't know what the man is, we're referring to the white man, okay? Yes, and or the money man's agenda, okay? Whether it be, you know, so now it doesn't even matter what race you are. If your objective is all about money, then you're the money man. Yeah. But when I was in the white environment, I never really got questioned because they saw the nurse, they saw the RN initials, and they recognized a form of authority. Because in those communities, there's a pecking order to, you know, there's a pecking order to authority. I am the patient, you're the nurse, therefore you are superior to me. So that whole ideology of ownership, superiority is permeated through the community because it's a tier system, a respect system. So no, 9 times out of 10, I walk in with the medication, white patient doesn't question, because they trust and they recognize that there's somebody here that has something I don't, therefore they have my best interest, which is in 1,000% of my cases as a nurse, 1,000,000%. That's right. I want you to trust me because I am your advocate and I have your best intentions at heart. But in the Black community, I mean, and you talk about every medical situation, I mean, it's pervasive. We grow up with it. I don't trust them. They may try to kill you because that's what has happened. It's not like imaginary. This is real.
Right.
So one of the most notable was the syphilis experiment. So, and and being a Black nurse, I'll comply because I want to build a sense of trust. I have to prove to you, even as a Black nurse. No, I can imagine my white counterparts. They got to work just as hard in the Black community because it's like, now I know you trying to kill me. Really, that's how it is. So, and these are discussions that need to happen so that people know this is the psychological state of the community you're working with, and you got to respect it.
Absolutely.
But go ahead.
No, I think it's your question.
It's my question to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I put my thing away here. How do you address the I'm Christian and love everybody arguments? Or do you end racism simply by stop talking about it?
I'm going to try to keep this, because I can get real fired up on this. And for those that don't know, I'm already not feeling well, and so for me to get ramped up on a topic, it's not going to end well for me. At any rate, how do I answer that? I'm trying to remember how I did this with I actually had this conversation with this complete stranger several weeks ago, and we agreed that where the fundamental agreement was that yes, at the end of the day, God is in control. We answer to Him. When it's all said and done, we are all going to have to stand before Him and ask and answer for ourselves and answer the same question of, what did you do with my son's name? We're all going to have to answer to that. And so where I was able to talk with that guy is like, with that, yes, I absolutely agree. And in that sense, yes, all lives matter. But there's so many ways I could argue that against it. I mean, really, because first off, Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. When Jesus said that, he's using the Hebrew interpretation for compassion.
Amen.
And the definition for compassion is to identify in someone else's sickness, or to identify in someone else's suffering or struggle. And it's not just empathy. It's not just a recognizing of their emotions. You identify with it. When Jesus and even Paul exhorts us, when your brother is rejoicing, you rejoice with your brother. When your brother is mourning, you mourn with your brother.
Amen.
And so when Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself, he's using the word compassion. You're identifying with it. And because you identify with that person, there is a call to action to eliminate that suffering, to alleviate it completely, because you don't want your brother or sister suffering anymore.
No.
And so right now, it's our Black brothers and sisters who are suffering. And it's them that we need to identify with. It's them that we need to stand up with and struggle with and work to end that struggling. It's as simple as that. So there's one argument of many. We can go into Micah 6:8. The Lord's already told you what his expectations are. He's already told you what to do. Seek justice. Love mercy. Walk humbly with your God. Those are all action words. Every bit of them. There is no idling. There is no lip service. If God's told you what he's expected you to do, you're going to seek justice. So anytime you go out, your head is on a swivel. You're looking for it. You're looking to see where justice is being exhibited. Not only that, you're looking for opportunities to correct injustice. So, and then to love mercy. I've already talked about love mercy. We've already talked about love. Now you're just throwing mercy on top of that. And mercy is what? The forgiveness of, I forgot how to say it. What is it? The forgiveness of something.
Of sins.
Yeah. You're not getting the punishment that you rightfully deserve. Exactly. Is ultimately, You're
Yes, you shouldn't be over punished.
Yeah. And so you need to love those mercy. You need to love mercy. You need to be compassionate. So, and then we can go into the parables. Let's talk about that lost sheep. Let's talk about that lost coin. Oh wait, all coins matter, right? So we don't need to worry about that one. I mean, I've got 99 sheep. Why do I need to worry about that other one?
No.
There is nowhere in there.
No.
Jesus never said that at all. He said, only if it matters to you. Only if it's convenient for you do you need to love your neighbor.
So it's like,
so
when you're in religion, whether you want to call it a synagogue or a church or a temple or whatever, a mosque, when we like the religion we utilize or that form of worship because of the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the congregation that's involved. Okay, that's actually what keeps us going back to that devotion. Okay, but the foundation is all the same, period. Goodness, kindness, and love. And even if you say, there's no such thing as God, guess what? Okay, that's your choice of religion. That's your atheism. Okay, you're saying that there's non-existent, but you still believe in goodness, kindness, and love. Those are things that you can exhibit. Those are things that you want to receive. So those are things that you can reciprocate. I think I don't understand where we're missing it. Okay, I don't get it. I don't get why we all believe in goodness, kindness, and love, but we don't want to give it to other people. Nobody should sit here and say that you earn it. No, give it first. Give it first. There's no earning it, because you giving it is also giving it to yourself. Okay. And when you do that, and that also leads to forgiveness. I posted that thing on Oprah, whether you like her or not, I don't care. The fact that forgiveness is huge. And it actually does more for you than it does to the person that you're forgiving. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. I've heard many sermons on that very point.
Yes. So, and it's true. And that's true. Why there's probably so many sermons, because people just aren't getting it.
Yeah.
Black people, I will take the charge and the lead to say Black people don't want white people, Asian people, Hispanic people. They don't want anybody harmed. Nobody wants it.
Right.
But when you see when you have a design, I mean, we already have, as humans, I already have to deal with my family. Can we just talk about that? like how many, like, there's days I don't have arguments with these boys and these girls. And then there's days it's like Third World War within my own family. So now I got to get this right in here. And we're now, we're vibing on the same thing. Then you go outside, you got to deal with your neighbors.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we get it. We're human. We're fallible. We're going to make mistakes. But we also have to realize we have to learn from them. And we have to have forgiveness. If you're leading with negativity and anger, that's the worst foot you could step on. That's the worst lead you could take. So no one wants, go ahead.
No, you were saying, no one wants harm.
No one wants harm. No one. We want compassion. We want love. We want unity. And I believe in a utopia. I want to get to the point where people are like, what, he white? Who uses that term? He ain't white.
Right.
That's my brother.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So
we'll get there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that what you just said is an excellent segue to my last question for you. And
how many minutes, Jared?
We've got about 5. We've got about 6-7 minutes. We still, but yeah, we got a little bit of time. We got time for one more, and this is it. And you've kind of touched on a little bit already, but so I'm a white guy. I get it. So you said, as you say, enlightened, seeing through different lenses. What can I do as a white male or as a white person to promote, to perpetuate, to advocate? That might just be my own answer right there. But the Black Lives Matter mentality. What can I do to be an effective white ally, if not an effective white accomplice?
For my white friends, this is a very difficult stance, but know that a lot of us Black people are with you, okay? A lot of us, almost all of us, okay? It's going to be hard because in some cases, these are your relatives, these are your friends, your lifelong friends, these are your pastor, these are neighbors. And it's like, it's not that I can't talk to you no more because you're not for all Black Lives Matter. It's, I want to talk to you and I want to understand why you find this is so offensive. I want my white friends to have conversation with their white friends. Those, not that means like, we can't, it's like the choir, preaching to the choir if you're talking to white friends that get it. We got you. Next. I want to talk to the white friends that are like, and I keep trying to talk to my white friends, but they're scared and they're angry because they're scared. They're afraid that they're going to lose a semblance of themselves by saying, why? And then they'll say to me personally, well, Monet, I love you. Okay, so what?
Yeah.
Go find some other, and you don't even have to go find. Look at the individuals that are spouting the hate, the KKK and the racial hate and want all lives matter. Look at them as a whole and say, there's some character flaws there. There is. Because you're so uncomfortable with thinking that there's some inferiority that's going to place. I talked about reparations, and my white girlfriend said, why? Why do you need reparations? I said, because there's 400 years that my ancestors, that's like saying your dad went to work and the house that y'all live in is not yours. Okay. Your dad went to work because he didn't get no money for it. So you're homeless. Don't you want your dad to get his back pay? Well, I want my grandmom and grandpa to get their back pay. Is that okay? That's what reparations is. And it's like, that'll bankrupt the country. Well, then the country needs to stop going around talking about how great they are. Okay. I mean, we are, I will feed into a little bit of the nationalism. Okay. And I have to say that because we were all raised with it, God bless America, which why not? We live here. God bless us. The Statue of Liberty, George Washington, which FYI, my maiden name is Washington. My ancestors were from Virginia. Wake up, people. I didn't get that name because we was cousins. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Okay.
No.
That's my tag. Like my dog tags. Like I belonged to those people. All right. That's how I got that last name. All right. Okay.
Wow.
That's why I married an African. Wake up. Okay. And wind up. That's another story. I know you laughing. I know why you laughing, Jared. We'll talk about that another day.
And I ain't laughing at you. I'm laughing near you on screen.
We'll explain,
and not really meaning no.
Another conversation, because I found out about my African last name and it's like, oh no.
Oh no. All right. Well, so what I hear you saying is we need to be having conversations with our white friends, and specifically the ones that don't agree with us.
Exactly. At least, like,
be
I have
uncomfortable.
friends that are Trump supporters, like hardcore. And people are like, you can't be friends with them. No, they're allowed to their opinion. And I'm not going to base our friendship on one person's opinion.
Yeah.
There's Trump is another conversation too.
That is a whole other conversation. And we don't need to end on that one.
No. Hell no. That's too long. But it's like educate yourselves. And not educate yourself, but ask questions.
Yeah.
One is why are y'all so mad? Ask me that. I would love to tell you. Because I'm not mad. I'm really not. I'm actually amused. But because I have information you don't. Yeah. And you need it.
Yeah.
And then I'll give you love. It's like when for those of us that chasing our children, okay, we discipline, and then we say, this is why you got disciplined, because I love you and I don't want you to make the same mistake.
Exactly. Here. Very good. Love it.
I love it. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on our very first episode of The New Theory, aka TNT with MJ. Again, I'm Jared.
I'm Monet.
And we are teaching minds and
nurturing souls.
And guys, we hope you enjoyed us next time. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them at us. TNT with MJ at gmail.com. Again, that's TNT, like T, like the letters.
Capital
TNT
T.
With WITH MJ. So TNT with MJ at gmail.com. And you can hit us up on social media, Monet and Jared on Facebook. And I have not gotten our Twitter account set up yet, but that is in the works. And we'll let you know that as soon as we get that set up. So again, thank you for joining us. Final thought on him, Monet?
Let's pray for Jared. We want him to feel better. We want good health for Jared. Okay, so all of us pray, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
That's my brother over there.
Love you too, sister. All right.
Okay.
Take care. Y'all take care. We'll see y'all next time.
Yes. Bye.